welcome back to the So There I Was podcast. I'm your host again, Travis Womack. Today's guest is Jerry Dugan, and Jerry's a former Army medic from what we, I guess, now would call back way back in the day, um, and is also the founder of Beyond the Rut, which has a podcast of the same name, and does a lot of keynote speaking and other stuff. I'm sure we'll have a good time hearing about that. And as a fellow life coach, it's always fun to hear what people are doing. So, Jerry, welcome to the show.
Oh man, thanks for having me here. Yeah. Yeah, I saw a post the other day. It was a clip from I have no idea what show it was, but they referred to a guy as an old timer. And it was somebody who was in Desert Storm. And I was like, I remember that when I was in high school, and
Yeah,
they're the old timers now. I'm not far behind these guys. Like I was
that means we're
a
next.
yeah. I was like, I'm not ready, man. Take that back. You don't call those guys old timers yet. That's no, we're not doing that. And
Yeah,
it was too.
I'm born right. I'm born in '80, so like I guess
Mhm.
it's the unofficial official cutoff of Gen X and millennial. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick X. They have a better reputation. So
My wife was also born 1980. I was 76. I act more millennial than she does, and she acts more Gen X than I do. I'm like, well, that fits. We balance each other out, I guess.
oh man, it's funny how that people do that like I kind of lean here 80% and
Yeah,
20% this way, and it's good times. Well, man, thanks for taking the time to be on the show, and
yeah,
it is so much fun for me as doing this with I just put out things on LinkedIn, kind of a casting call, I guess you would call it. I don't know. And
yeah,
I've met some really, really cool people. And here it is, you're right down the street from me,
yeah.
here in Dallas, which is crazy. But let's just kind of start from the beginning of things. And, we're chatting here before we hit record on you were in college and
Yes,
want to go to med school, and then kind of pick it from there, and just kind of what got you in the army. And I'm sure there's
yeah,
some tales is being a medic. There's always fun stories from those guys.
yeah. No kidding. I mean, so there I was.
Yeah.
I censored that though, guys. I'm sorry. But yeah, my mom's dream was that I would join the army and be a doctor. That she's from Thailand, so her view of what success was in American culture was very limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, all she knew were soldiers, and then from her culture, you're a doctor, that makes you successful. So she put the two together, army, doctor, and I was like, okay. So yeah, from birth till I went off to college, I was like, what do I do with my life? Okay, I'll just go pre med. Um, and my GPA said otherwise. It was I got out of there with a 2.1, but it was one of those barely. My faculty advisor decided, hey, we're going to implement this new rule that really doesn't apply to you, but we're going to do it anyway just to get you out of here. You're out of money, and you're just stubborn. And he even asked me if I wanted to switch majors and to be in education, because what he realized was that even though my grades were like D's and F's in the program, I was tutoring classmates to get A's and B's. And he's like, Jerry Dugan helped you get an A in this class. And,
It's funny how that works out.
yeah. And so when I met him, he's like, you're not going to get into med school with these. Education might be a good path. And I looked at him and I said, those who can't do, teach. I was like 20, 21. And he looked at me because he's a professor, and he looked at me and he was like, sign. He's like, good luck to you. And that was it. He was like, get this kid out of here, I guess. I don't know what went through his head. I know what came out of my mouth. And yeah, got my degree. My dad came with me because I graduated late, had to go get transcripts to join the army,
Hmm.
because I talked to a few folks in medical schools. Stanford, I think, was one of them. That was my dream school. And I think the guy saw my GPA and he winced, kind of like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
man." Um, Not saying you can't get in, but probably not with that GPA unless you got a really great MCAT score and you get some medical experience. And so, what these guys all recommended, Stanford, somebody who's actually a doctor, and somebody else, they're all like, go back to school, become a nurse, become a medic, something, get experience in the actual healthcare field. Retake some of these classes when you're older, more mature, nothing less than a 4.0, and then kill the MCAT. Just knock it out of the park. You might see yourself in a med school within 8 years or so. And I was like, okay. And then I walked into a recruiting office because I had no money left to go back to school to go
Right.
get a nursing degree. I didn't even have enough money to go and get an EMT license or certification. So I just thought the Army's got like 200 plus years history of like creating and treating trauma. Let's do this. And
Yeah.
yeah, I walked into the local recruiting station in Stockton, California, and I was like, I want to sign up, but I need college loan repayment, and it's got to be in the medical field. And they're just like, I think they just saw me like, oh, he walked into our house.
Yeah.
And um,
Made demands. How dare you?
yeah, exactly. So um, they tried to get me to enlist as 11 X-ray. That
Yep.
was
Baby
yeah,
chicken.
and so yeah, I thought it meant X-ray as in radiology. So I'm like, oh, hey, radiology. And the smile just left that recruiter's face. He's like, no, it's infantry. And I was like, oh, but you'll get all the loans repaid. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I at least get to put a band-aid on somebody. And all that guy had to do was say yes. Someday somebody will get hurt and you will put a
Yep.
band-aid on. But he honestly said, I can't guarantee that in your contract. And I was like, well, I guess I can't go infantry. Um, and then a team of recruiters were like, armor repair. I'm like, no, if I'm going to work in armor, I want to drive the thing. Well, do you want
Yeah.
to do that? No, I want to be a medic. I want to be in the medical field. So I was almost a tanker. And I think at one point, like an Apache mechanic.
Yeah.
And in the end, I said, guys, I probably did say, guys, I was a stupid college kid at the time. And I was like, I came in here to get college loan repayment and a job in the medical field. And if you can help me with that, great. If not, I mean, apparently y'all are going gaga over my ASVAB score. And I heard Air Forces across the hallway.
Yep.
And okay, 91 Bravo, medic, you leave today. And I'm like, well, I still have one semester left in school. I gotta graduate. I didn't spend all this money not to graduate. They're, all right, you leave in June. I'm like, deal. And so
Done.
that's how I got in the Army. Didn't even consult my dad, who he was in the Army for 20 years. He was a military policeman,
Oh
and
wow.
he got out as a staff sergeant. You know, which for a guy who barely got out of high school, that was great. And his advice to me before I left for college was, do whatever you want with your life, just don't ever join the Army. And if you do, he's like, I am talking to my son here. Uh, and if you do, you better go in as an officer because you're going off to college. You're going to have a degree. You can get in as an officer. And, you know, I took that advice and obviously threw that right out the window.
I know better, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. I'm smarter than you. I'm going to college. And, oh man, life has humbled me. Uh, yeah, 4.5 years to get my 4 year degree. And I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, guess what? He's like, what? I joined the Army. Dead silence. This guy has always been proud of me, and it has always been easygoing. That silence was the only time in my life I felt like he was disappointed in me.
Ooh, that's the worst.
I don't think he knew what to say. He's like, oh, okay. And then finally he spoke up and he's like, so you're going in as an officer? No, Dad, enlisted. And I was like, but because of my college degree, they're going to let me come in as a specialist. And he's like, oh, you could have gone in as an officer if you wanted, but no, I wouldn't be able to treat patients. I had this whole story. Like I
Yeah.
had it all worked out. Um, and he's like, are they doing college loan repayment for you? No, because you know, I got the medical thing. And so my recruiters got me. Um, if you're going to join the military, just skip
Oh yeah.
past this part. Yeah, just go past this. Recruiters, just cover your ears.
I was a recruiter actually. That's funny.
Oh, really? I was like, I better put these disclaimers in here just in
Yeah.
case. Uh, and so, yeah, I joined no college loan repayment because they said because I chose the medical field instead of one of these
Right.
other high incentive positions, and I go. And I guess the salt in the wound was I didn't mention this when we were chatting before. I was born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma,
Mhm.
because my dad was in. That's where they sent me for basic training, and yeah. So every time we're filling out paperwork and they get that line on there that says birthplace, and I write proudly Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Right.
I don't know how, but I just happened to have a drill sergeant walk past me as I was filling out that part of the form. And I would hear a very thunderous, it says birthplace, dummy. And yeah, before I knew to say drill sergeant at the end of everything I said, I was like, that is where I was born. Oh, are you going to talk back now? And then I got good at push-ups.
Right over here at Reynolds. I was that's where I was born.
Yeah. And they didn't believe me. So my drill sergeant, my platoon drill sergeant said, all right, we don't have time for you to get smoked by every drill sergeant on this post. Make sure your ID card falls out of your pocket every time you have to do push-ups. because I can't be around to protect you the whole time. I was like, yes, drill sergeant. And sure enough, like 10 minutes later, I'm getting smoked for whatever form I didn't fill out correctly according to them. And so I'm like in the front lean and rest. I'm doing push-ups in cadence, and somehow I'm like doing these. I don't know. I probably didn't pull it off, but every time I locked up arms, I'd reach up real quick, unbutton my pocket, do some more, like reach in there and just throw my ID card out there real quick, and a birth certificate in a sandwich bag, and they're like, "Oh, what's this? You lost some loose items here," and they pick it up for me, and oh, look, your birthplace, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Recover. And then they give me my stuff back. And
Dang it.
uh, yeah, but yeah, I wasn't very fit when I got in, but there was one event in the PT test I could max without trouble, and that was
Push-ups.
push-ups. Man, that was if there was a competition, I'd probably win that thing. But
That's
back
funny.
then, now a whole different story.
I had a birthday like the third week of basic training, and
Uh-huh.
my cousin and her youth group, like they were in Oklahoma, and
Oh
I
man.
think they sent me like I got like 65 cards, and they all showed up like the same day somehow. That they were all like did this little at church, and then they all put them in a
Yeah.
box, and they all went and somebody mailed them all together. So I get them all. I'm like, so my Joe started
Oh,
like, oh, it's your birthday.
right.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in really good shape for about a week. So I had to
Gosh.
do 10
What a,
push-ups per card.
oh my, yeah, I was gonna say one of
It's
my
like,
classmates, his brother went in before him. His brother was at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. And I remember, yeah, Chapin was his name. And you hear Chapin, and like the mail was already sorted, so his envelopes were already packaged together with a rubber band, and you would see that rubber band come off, and that mail
oh
just get
no.
mixed right in with everybody else's,
Oh
and you're like,
no.
oh no, Todd, you're screwed, man. And he's like, why? We're in the front row, and we just saw drill sergeant put all your letters in all the letters. And
Yeah.
sure enough, he'd call names out and Chapin, he'd come up to 10 push-ups. He'd sit back down, Chapin, and he'd come back up to 10 more
No.
push-ups. It was like that was the pinnacle for every night. It was just like, yeah. And then, like one night, the brother just sent envelopes with stamps. Like every envelope was empty.
My brother would he would send like an envelope with one piece of gum in it. I'm like, dang it. He's like, you get punished. I'm like, yes. It's like,
Oh
it's like
man.
sweet. Like, it's funny you mentioned that going to Fort Sill. I had a buddy of mine, a coworker. He went to Lawton High School,
Oh wow.
and then he went to I forget the community colleges there, or not the community college,
I
the
don't know what
four-year
it is.
college.
Yeah.
Went to the ROTC there and commissioned, and
Oh wow.
then got branched artillery. So he went to Bullock right there at Fort Sill, and
Man.
then he got assigned to the artillery unit on Fort Sill. I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
do you still live with your mom and dad? He's like, yes. I'm like, I don't blame you. I mean, you get some good BAH and live in the parents,
Yes.
basement. And then so I joined the army though to see the world, and I can't leave Lawton.
Man. I make fun of that, but my dad tried the same thing. He was in for 20 years, and it was like the best he could pull off was just about every other assignment was close to his hometown in California. Um, but yeah, he couldn't do that at every time. But I knew guys at Fort Benning that yeah, they grew
Just
up in
never leave.
Columbus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
the army doesn't have a whole lot in California outside of NTC stuff, so you're
yeah,
getting slim pickings of options when it's like,
yes,
oh, let's go to the coast. Like we don't do the coast. Army picks the worst places in the history of all landscape and puts a base
yeah.
there. Have you been to Benning? Have you? It's like have you been to Hood? It's like no one else would normally live there.
And
So,
it's like why? It's probably cheap.
well, yeah, it was it's cheap old land post Civil War,
Yeah,
and that they bought all this stuff, and but that's crazy. So what do you
yeah,
So you went to 91 Bravo. So this is 99.
yes,
And
yeah. Very
so
tail end of the year.
that school's pretty, were you in school for 91 Bravo when 9/11 happened, or where were you at?
When 9/11 hit, that was 2 years later, and I was stationed in Germany with First Armor Division,
Okay.
uh, and I was dating my soon-to-be wife. So we were both medics, same platoon.
Oh wow.
Um, I met her when I got back from Kosovo. She was in my platoon. I'm like, oh wow, she's cute. Oh wow, she talks about more than just getting drunk. This is cool. And
They do exist.
they do exist. I knew it. And it turns out she thought I was cute as well. And it took me 3 months to work up the nerve to ask her out. And then when I asked her out, she's like, "What took you so long?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I've been dropping hints for 3 months." And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, do you really think I want to listen to how to set up an OE254 in the middle of the night?
Well,
You,
yeah.
you didn't?
No, no, you don't.
You smiled and nodded and asked so many questions. And
Yeah.
she was like, I thought you were cute. And I just wanted to keep you talking. And since you were assigned to teach me everything you learned in Kosovo, I was like, you realize I ran
Jackpot.
out of content in the first week. Everything for the last 3 months has been correspondence courses.
That's
And she's like,
funny.
what? Yeah, you have the stack of yellow books in my room. Like all that is what I've been talking about for the
That's
last
funny.
3 months. Yeah,
Kosovo's, it's funny. I'm sorry, I mean, John,
yeah,
Kosovo's like the forgotten time of the
yeah.
army. Like there's one more. There's Kosovo and something else right
There was
before now.
Bosnia.
Bosnia, yeah.
Yeah,
And like those two things were like, things were getting squirrely. And then I was, oh man, I remember when I came in, it was all the people from the invasion.
yeah,
And they were like, but a lot of them overlapped into Kosovo and Bosnia. So
yeah.
like, yeah, these guys that deployed to both of those because the 82nd Airborne was that way, and then they deployed in the invasion. It's like, oh my gosh, y'all have so much experience. You were like gods.
Yeah, I was in basic training when Kosovo kicked off, and I remember my platoon drill sergeant coming in, and he was just like, "You guys think you've got it all made, and it's rough, but this is what's happening right now." And he's just yelling at us that right now, your brothers in the 82nd Airborne are dropping into Kosovo to
Yeah,
secure it, and they're in a standoff with the Russians. And you're like, "Dang, we're." He's like,
it's
"And you guys
happening.
are going next." Yeah, it's happening now. He was a Pathfinder, so he was already pissed that he was doing
Oh
basic
yeah,
training in Fort Sill. Like
right.
not even Fort Benning. They sent him to Fort Sill to do this, and so he was already pissed that he wasn't there dropping in with these guys in Kosovo. But yeah, I wound up going like I guess not the first rotation, which was First Infantry Division, but I went with First Armor Division,
Right.
and by then it was kind of like paid vacation. Like we had civilian contractors come in and clean
Yeah.
out porta potties at the outposts. I was like, so we don't have latrine duty. Yeah, the
Or chow.
headquarters, yeah, hot chow morning and night. I was like, yeah.
Yep.
And my job as a medic was just make sure people wash their hands. I was like, okay, this is pretty chill. We had satellite TV at one of the outposts,
Yep.
and not all of them, but it was cool. I didn't like being at the main built up Camp Monteith in Jelani. Um, I don't know why. I mean, it was 24/7 free dining hall. I was like,
Yeah.
maybe that was part of it. Like, I knew I could eat a lot. I was like, okay, I can't. It's like free pizza all day, every day. Heck yeah,
Jackpot and a Coke, even
I
better.
win. Yeah. Um,
It's funny because people forget that stuff. They forget like we were doing stuff before 9/11. It's just different amount of
yeah,
things. We had Desert Storm. One of my episodes had a guy that he joined after Desert Storm and got out before all that. So his whole
yeah.
entire service is like, I think the title is like, "Am I really a veteran?"
Yes, I
And
remember that episode. Yeah,
and it was kind of interesting to hear his perspective on like he's not alone of being the people that even if they were in during Kosovo and Bosnia, maybe they didn't go. That
yeah,
was not all the units obviously went to that, and how it's affected people in their mindset of what does service mean, and
yeah,
and here we are now, and obviously the next thing is Ukraine, and there's always somebody being squirrely out there.
yeah.
So
I was chatting with a guy this morning, and he was telling he's elderly, but he was telling me about I think an uncle of his who had come in from Italy, signed up to join the army, but because he was fresh from Italy, they were like, nope, you cannot go fight in Europe. And so they made him a truck driver and sent him off to Alaska. And that's where he served from like 1941 to 1944. Finally convinced the army. I guess attrition was bad enough. They were like, all right, yeah, forget these rules, they're stupid. So
true.
they allowed him to change his job to infantry. I got him into a unit that was going to Europe. But by then,
War was over.
VE got declared and it was over. So that was something that guy had shared with the guy I chatted with while
Wow.
he was growing up, that he felt guilty that, he didn't get to do his part in World War II. And I'm like, but he did, like he was securing the West Coast from a Japanese invasion. I
Yeah.
mean, it probably didn't feel like it, but he was.
Yeah.
Uh,
Alaska was a different time of
yeah.
a different army back then of like we could change stuff on a fly. because
Yeah.
and now it's like we gotta ask our five bosses.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man.
but let's talk a little bit. I'd love to hear your um I find 9/11 stories fascinating
Yeah.
because it's it's our JFK generation story of where were you, which is a terrible reference, but it's the truth. And people remember when they're at Pearl Harbor. I mean, sadly every 30, 40 years is a pretty significant event. But so you're in Germany
Yes.
and all hell breaks loose and time
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, time difference. And I was attached to, I think it was Second Brigade, First Armored. They had sent a task force out to Hungary, and I think Hungary was applying to become part of NATO, and at the same time they were playing out the idea of having a volunteer element to their military force. So there was like a sort of like a demonstration day. They were going to bus in these high school students in the thousands
Oh
and
wow.
show off, like, look, this is our might, and whatever they were saying in their language. But that was kind of the gist of it. And then, and on top of that, this is what it would look like with our NATO friends. And it was like the Americans, and like we're firing artillery from Paladins, and the Apache helicopters are coming up like, you got the Soviet helicopters that do strafing runs and stuff. And then, yeah, the Apaches, you could hear them, and all of a sudden they would just rise up from these hills, fire a
Yeah.
bunch of missiles,
And
and then they would just
disappear.
slowly
Such a
slink
cool
back
weapon.
down. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, it gave me chills. I remember having one over my head, two of them over my head in Kosovo, and so to see that again in person, I was like, those things are just, they're so slick.
Awesome.
And then the infantry guys, they did their demo with their
Right.
Bradleys rolling up. They did a live
Purple
fire.
smoke.
Yeah, firing tow missiles, which were way faster than what the Hungarians were shooting. And yeah, they went and they secured these bunkers where the Hungarians didn't do any of that stuff, and you could hear all these folks cheering. And we probably recruited heavily for the U.S. Army without realizing it, but from the Hungarian ranks. Um, and so we were small. It was like a mini brigade because we only had one battalion of infantry. We didn't bring any tanks, um, just a few guns. So like I think it was a platoon of cannons, not even a full battery. Um, no, it was one battery, not a battalion of them, and then of course the squadron that came with us. Um, but with that, some guys got sick, and
Yeah.
they were sent locally into the nearest hospital that the Hungarians had. And so when 9/11 was happening, we didn't know this was happening, but the physician, the battalion surgeon, needed to go check on these soldiers, needed an ambulance driver. I was that guy. Uh, but medics being medics, it was like hoagie bait run.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah,
Beef
apparently
jerky
somebody
lifesavers, duh.
yes. So somebody on one of these trips to go check on these soldiers, and to me, I was a little mad because it was like we've been here for like a week and a half, and this was the first time I was hearing about there's a Hungarian Walmart that just
Oh
happens
yeah.
to be on the way to this hospital, and y'all have been shopping like crazy, but you've been holding out like you've been like in the same tent as me, and you're like not sharing your beef jerky. And like, Doc, you can come with us. So I got to go shopping in a Hungarian Walmart. We checked on the soldiers; they were fine.
Right.
Um,
Oh
but
yeah.
I got like Hungarian like meat stuff in a can. I probably liverwurst, probably like the ham spread that you
Who
buy.
knows?
Yeah, who knows? It was pinkish. It could last forever. At least I think that's what the date said on there. And I got some fresh baked French bread from the bakery. And we just piled that into the ambulance, the back of this giant Humvee that has a red cross on it for the guys who don't know what I'm talking about. And we just head on back to the camp where we're assembled. And along the way, we stop at where the squadron is because the battalion surgeon has a responsibility to check on the squadron that's
The
attached
aviators.
to,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we go up there, and the physician assistant, I think he gets out, and he's like, all right, well, Sergeant so and so, you come with me. That was my squad leader for that particular mission. And so she went with him, and they went to go do their rounds, check on these 100-ish soldiers that were in a separate location because,
Maintainers. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because we can't have the Apaches that close to everybody
Sure.
else. There's a lot of top secret stuff in them. Um, and so while they're off doing their thing, um, we got the ambulance back, the hatch open. There's like
Mhm.
3 or 4 of us just milling around. So the trip to go check on these soldiers was ridiculous because we brought like 7 or 8 people, or maybe it was more like 6 people
Right.
with us. We only needed two.
Right.
And,
Of
you know,
course.
yeah, we took everybody. Yeah, so we're just hanging out by this ambulance, and then somebody creeped up behind us. He was like, "Hey, so what are you guys doing?" And it was a sergeant, and we're like, "Hey, not much." And we're like slowly closing the doors to the ambulance because there's nothing but shopping bags in the
Yeah.
back of our ambulance. And
Nothing medical is in here.
yeah, yeah, nothing to see here, Sergeant. What's up? And he's like, "So you haven't heard?" We're like, "Heard what?" We went to go check on some soldiers who were in the hospital. Okay, so you definitely haven't heard then. We're like, "Heard what?" And he said, um, 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center and another one into the Pentagon, and there's a fourth one missing. And we think that it was terrorists and we're under attack. And we thought the guy was pulling our leg. We're like,
It's a
"You
good
want some
joke.
bread?" Yeah,
Yeah.
like we thought he was just pulling our leg, and like maybe we'll give him some of our food and he'll go away. But we're like, "You're kidding." He goes, "No, I wish I was. If you guys can call home, get a message home. Um, is your family going to be okay? Do you have families?" I'm like, "No, I'm a single guy, but I've got a girlfriend, and I don't know how she is." He goes, "Okay, well, try to check up on people." Very somber, very serious.
Yeah.
Not once, and we're all worried, like, are we going to get busted for what's in the back of this ambulance? But now we've got this like shock going on. Like,
Yeah.
this guy just gave us real, like, what do we do now? Like, we're just carrying blanks in our weapons.
Right.
And just as this guy had walked away, my NCO is coming back, and her face is just ash pale, like all the color gone, and just in shock. And she looked at us and she said, "I don't know how to tell you guys this, but we're under attack. If I want you to go to the officer's tent, they've got a satellite TV set up, and go see for yourself." And so we went. We walked into that tent, and it was very surreal. Like, it was
Oh
it was
yeah.
like what you'd see with you ever see that movie like Battle Los Angeles,
Oh yeah.
and how the Marines are seeing on TV the
Oh
live
yeah.
news feed of the aliens coming,
Oh yeah.
or like Independence Day
Yeah.
when the
The
news is
the
reporting.
the, the coming. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I walk into this tent, and people are just seated in rows. They're on the floor, they're standing up, but that tent is packed.
Oh yeah.
And and it's not even like a talk, a command center. It's like the officer sleep tent,
Yeah.
and everybody's just jam packed in there. There's a few soldiers crying, but everybody's just silently staring at this TV like,
It just got real.
yeah, it just got real. What do we do now? Like,
Yeah.
not like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But like, what's next? Where are the bullets? Where do we go? And
That's crazy.
who do we have to take out? It was just like instant mission mode. And from there, battalion surgeon found us, and he's like, "Hey, we got to get back to our AO. Um, the commander's got some stuff for everybody." And so
Yeah.
we get back to our AO, back to our aid station, and the order comes down: report to your unit armorer, turn in your blanks,
Get
retrieve,
real.
retrieve force protection ammo. And
Yeah.
so that meant 30 rounds, everybody, and
Yeah.
turn in your blank adapter. So no weapon should have its blank adapter on at this point. And I mean, it was the closest thing to like fixed bayonets for everybody. It was just
Yeah.
like, everybody's like taking their blank adapters off at the same time. The Hungarian army is like side by side. Like, their camp is right next to our camp. It was like one big tent city. When all this was going down, they're looking at us with nervous eyes. Like, you could tell they feel for the pain we're going through.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they see a bunch of soldiers they don't know personally
Getting real bullets.
swapping out, yeah, getting real bullets, and they're just like, "Well, we got hot food. You guys want some?"
They just saw this display of like awesomeness, and they're like, "Oh, somebody pissed them off. We should
Yes.
we should go get some more Skittles." Oh, we got back.
Yeah. And like their whole thing was like to connect with us, bridge the
Right.
gap between countries. But here's this like very serious thing, and we're loading up with live ammo.
Yeah.
Um, and somewhere in this, one of the officers in the unit said, Hungary is the corridor that Al Qaeda uses to get into Europe. So we might be target number one or target number next.
Yeah.
And we're like, shoot. And so that was part of the wariness that they had, because the way we looked at the Hungarians shifted.
Oh yeah,
We didn't
real
we weren't
quick.
gonna yeah, like we weren't gonna go guns blazing, but the attitude was watch them, don't get too close.
Yeah.
You don't know which one is feeding information to Al Qaeda. And the next
Offset
day, they're
Donaldson was born that day.
yes, it was instantaneous. Boom.
Yeah.
um, and the next day, the general from the Hungarian side gave a very bold statement that an attack on the U.S. was an attack on Hungary, and that they were going to do everything in their power to support what we were doing
That's
to
cool.
fight back. And at that point, the rest of the training exercise, the demonstration was done.
Yeah.
We're packing up, we're rail loading everything and rushing back. And I still have not made contact back home yet because I don't know
Wow.
why. Yeah.
Well, so that was what 8:15 in the morning. Was Germany 6 hours over East Coast or is it
Uh,
five? Something like that.
6 or 8, somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
So you're like 3 and 4 in the afternoon. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It was evening time. Because we went on that run and we were already talking about dinner. Like, hey,
Yeah.
not only do we have this poke bait, but they're getting ready to serve chow. Like
Yeah.
we were like excited like that.
Double
But
jackpot.
yeah. Yeah. Sweet.
That's
Good
crazy,
for our
man.
stomachs. Yeah.
I,
So
I hear these stories. You know, I've had great. I call it great luck. That's kind of a weird phrase, but you know, I've had some friends that were at West Point. You
oh
know, in
wow.
11, they were. You know, I had a buddy of mine that was. They were. You know, it's a Tuesday morning, so like they just jumped in for a training exercise Monday night, and so they're walking
Mm,
around the woods of Fort Bragg. You know, and they're just like, "What is this part of the drill?" Like, you know, like
yeah.
everyone's just mass confusion, and then they had to man the gate. Same stuff. Everyone's like, everybody go guard the door, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
it's the kind of a what do we do? And then it's crazy. So
Yeah.
let's transition just a little bit. Is I definitely want to talk about what you're doing now. I think it's pretty awesome. And so you've got this podcast called Beyond the Rut. So we'll definitely give a shout out to that. But it's more than just that. It's a full on business of getting people to understand what leadership is. And
Yeah.
you have a really cool thing, the stakes of leadership. So talk about that just for a bit. I'm sure
Yeah.
not too much to give it away, but
No, it's fine. Yeah, so the podcast um, was a passion project that I started with two other friends. In fact, the podcast originally wasn't mine; it was my friend Brandon's. He was a pastor at a church. We all served together in a men's ministry, and one day he realized, "Gosh, I talk to the same guys every weekend. I give them advice. 6 months later, same guys, same problems, but now the problem is worse." And he was like, "Jerry, you got a podcast with your family. I love it. I love the energy you've got. Help me start one that records all the advice I give these guys, because if my guys at my church won't listen to it, somebody else out there will."
yeah,
And so that's what started that show. And the whole idea was we wanted it to help men specifically create a life that was worth living in their faith, their family, and their career or their business. So it was that balance, not like work-life balance. I only do so many hours here, so many hours there,
right,
that kind of thing. But like, what does success look like for me, Jerry Dugan? And that only applies to Jerry Dugan. And then what does success look like for Travis? What does success look like for Brandon? And have we really taken the time to define that for each of ourselves and just live true to that? And so that was the premise of the show. We got these men who feel stuck in a rut. Let's help them get out of that, and not just get out of the rut, but let's live beyond that rut. Um, we learned later on that rut is also a hunting term,
hmm
having deer and mating season type of
oh yeah,
thing. Yeah, none of our friends told us that while we were picking the name for the show. They told us like 5 years later when people started to notice. We're like, really? We could use that at the beginning. They're like,
information I
we
could have
had
used
Google.
yesterday.
Really? Yeah, it was like, but their response was like, we had Google then, like in
True.
2015. You could have just Googled this. We're like, yeah, we could have. We were arguing though. It was, so that's the show. But then fast forward to 2022. I'm burning out from my job. I've got a leader who's toxic. He basically single-handedly killed morale on my entire team, despite all the efforts I was doing, despite all the humility I was taking in. And I usually don't, outright say it was him, but he was a big part of it. He was the
Yeah,
catalyst that made everybody else who was tired realize we don't have to be here. And if we're gonna put up with this, you got to double my pay. And so that team pretty much left, and they've all doubled their pay, and they actually get to do their job. Whereas
Yeah.
with us, whatever I handed them would get taken away, and then they would get delegated something like, check on the embroidery on those jackets for that class that's graduating, or go check the mail room for
Yeah.
our mail for the day. It was really, just demeaning type of stuff. Or the guy would call them on a Sunday and say, "Hey, where's my report on blah 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 blah? I need it ASAP." And it's like, it's Sunday and I'm gonna pick with my family. It's like, I need it now. And he really didn't need it now. He was having anxiety in that moment
You're
and felt
right.
like he now. But so that was that kind of environment. My wife had said to me on Labor Day weekend, "Jerry, quit your job. I want my husband back." And she's Mrs. Don't leave your job until you have another one. And
Yeah.
like, what's gonna pay the bills next month kind of person. And here for the first time in 21 years at that time, she's saying, just quit your job. I want my husband back. And when she said that, because of the show Beyond the Rut, it made me perk up and it made me realize, wait, the whole messaging behind Beyond the Rut is that, our family means way more than our career.
Oh yeah.
And for some reason, we're acting like the career is more important, but it's taking a toll on the family. And so I'm like, Liv, this is easy. I'm gonna go to my computer. I'm gonna type up the letter of resignation right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. Now I'm gonna have it sent at 9 in the morning the next day because I want to talk to HR first
Right.
and kind of give them a rundown of what happened that led up to this, and then what's going to happen afterwards. And sure enough, everything I said was going to happen wound up happening. And
Yeah.
um, but the whole idea was, get out of there. It's not worth it. I'd gained something like 60 pounds in the course of like a year and a half.
Wow.
I was sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a night because of the stress from work. And I was thinking, man, I've gone through, Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom. And you would think that's the thing keeping me up at night. And it's like, no, it's working for this guy. And
Yeah.
so yeah, just threw in the towel. We decided we are going to take 3 months off, regroup, and then go job hunting January 2023.
Yeah.
But by that time, talked to a few folks, and they all said, "You know what? You've got this dream on your heart. You're
Do it.
like 46. You're getting older." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks. Um, what's stopping you from pursuing your dreams?" I was like, "Yeah, the guy that's got the show about pursuing your dreams, living
Yeah.
the
It's
life
like,
you want to
dang
live,
it, you can't use my
is
own
apparently
content against
not."
me.
And as I'm writing the book, because it turns out year one goal for Beyond the Rut was to write a book about the lessons learned and our manifesto, and it was now 8 years later, and that hadn't been done. So I was
Yeah.
writing the book for that based on lessons learned from like 350 plus guests that we had on the show. And it was just like this big aha moment. Like, I want to be a keynote speaker. I want to I want to inspire people to take action, to
Right.
pursue their own version of success. So I want to be a keynote speaker that helps people do that. I want to do workshops that help leaders make it happen. And, if I need to get into coaching, I'll do that too. And all that would be to help leaders be better leaders and
Hmm.
live that life that's worthwhile for them. But then on the flip side, I wanted flexibility for my wife and I to be able to go and travel to,
Yeah.
on a drop of a dime, get some plane tickets, go somewhere for a day or two,
Yeah.
come back. And a regular 9 to 5 just wasn't going to allow that for me. But a business set up the right way would. And so that was another thing there. And then, yeah, just to focus on the things I love doing, the creativity of a podcast, the writing of books, getting up and talking to groups of people about, you know, the tent framework and,
Yeah.
you know, the, the 5 F's, if we're talking more about life and as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, and so those all came about, and it was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And
Mm.
so I started my company, BTR Impact, really to help leaders have beyond the red impact in their workplace, but also in life. And somewhere in there, I stumbled on creating a leadership framework, a servant leadership framework,
That's
drawing from
awesome.
lessons as a sergeant in the Army, drawing from lessons of doing leadership development. That's been the bulk of my career post
Yeah.
Army. And it's a framework that really helps me understand, like, not just understand servant leadership, but in the moment apply it.
Yeah.
And the whole idea being around the fastest way to set up a tent is stake the corners first.
Right.
And yeah, learned that in the Army. First
That's
field
old.
day.
That's old school tin halves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore. But yeah,
Yeah. Dang.
you
Got all
got
the cool stuff after I left, I hear.
I was funny. I was basically training with that, and that's what we build the shelter halves, and dig
Yeah.
in and shelter sector stakes and all this stuff, and it's like how much it's changed is crazy. So
Yeah. Oh,
I
man.
love it. Well, man, that's awesome to see that you're doing that, and if you're listening out there, by all means, check out what Jerry's got going on, because it's what I've gotten to read. I haven't got to read a whole lot, just to be honest, because I've had like 5 episodes in the past week and a half, and
That's it. No kidding.
yeah, no
That's
shit.
a lot.
But it's in everybody's got a book. I'm like, I can't read them all that fast.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
it's really cool stuff. I watched a couple of your videos, and it's awesome to see veterans getting out, completing that transition in a healthy way. It doesn't matter if it was 2003 or yesterday. It is a weird transition.
Yeah.
The language changes, but how do you? There's so many lessons learned, like you've already said, of how to deal with people. And I tell people all the time, like, for me, I'm a little biased because I was airborne infantry. It's the best diversity training you can possibly go through is join the military.
Oh yeah.
Is because every single possible stereotype there is about any race, any culture, any sex, any whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, you learn them all real
Yes.
quick, and we remind you of it all the time. I'm from West Texas. I talk really fast. I'm like, oh, you mumble. I'm like, no, I don't mumble. See, I'm from West Texas. We just remove all the spaces, and it's just one very big word. It's not mumbling. It's just a larger vocabulary. It's what we call it.
Man.
So, and but you get, like, I had a guy he's from the islands, and he was from the islands, but that dude could climb a tree like a stray cat.
Yeah.
And so, like, every time we saw a tree, we're like, hey, think. It's like, shut up. We're like, no, but seriously. He's like, I swear to God, y'all are the worst. We're like, no, but there's coconuts in Baghdad. We gotta get one of those. That's gotta, And he's like, y'all are the worst human beings ever, and
Oh man.
but he did. He climbed a tree in the middle of Baghdad. We're on a patrol, and he's in full kit, and he scaled this tree, got a coconut, and brought it down.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. So I think it's great to see people taking those lessons.
Yeah. We had a
Sarcasm
pet
and
donkey for some reason for a few days.
do what?
We had a pet donkey in our compound for a few
Yeah.
days.
The weirdest stuff happens, and nobody
Yeah, we're like,
believes.
yeah, like, dude, where'd you get a donkey? He's like, it showed up at the gate. I'm like, and you just invited it in and got a leash for it and everything. Yeah, it's my donkey. And he started petting it. Like,
I've offered it some milk.
Yeah.
Don't hate me. So, that's great.
And then he was offering like pony rides. And so he had these guys in full battle rattle on this donkey for like $1 to ride around the compound. And
we are entrepreneurs at heart. We all are.
Yes. Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
we're like the advanced carnies. So,
Yeah.
so I love it. So, well, if you're out there, and you're listening to the show, by all means, subscribe to Beyond the Rut, and definitely subscribe to So There I Was, and help veterans. And if you want to be a guest of the show, by all means, go to my website, womackc3.com, and you can sign up there. It's very easy. Jerry can tell you. It's one page. You type in your name, phone number, email, and it creates a Zoom link, and we're off and running. And
Awesome.
it's a good time. But Jerry, thanks a lot for your time to be on the show. And we'll have to have you back sometime. And we've already talked about me being on your show possibly. So I look forward to it, and we'll see you next time.